Alex, your little fiancée is here to check up on you again. She's really clingy, isn't she? Afraid her phoenix might fly away. Yeah, might as well tie him to her waist. Don't say that. Look, her face is already turning red from embarrassment. Serena looked up at the graceful girl they were teasing. Her name was Vivian Yao. With her jet black hair, snow-white skin, and slender figure, she exuded elegance. Her smile was sweet and pure, making her the undisputed goddess of the architecture department. In my previous life, she was the woman Alex could never forget, the one he spent his entire life pursuing. In that moment, it hit me. I had been reborn. I was back before the wedding, at the time when Alex had taken leave from work to prepare for our marriage. Vivian Yao was the very person he brought back as his true love in my past life. Alex looked at me with a faint smile. Are you here for Alex? He's coming down in a minute. As I stood there under the sunlight, momentarily lost in thought, Alex appeared with his usual cold expression. What are you doing here again? He asked, cutting through the crowd and walking up to me. He grabbed my arm and pulled me to a quieter path nearby. I'm here for a gathering with my classmates, he said impatiently, adjusting his glasses. Do you have to follow me everywhere? His irritation was evident. Serena, the wedding is in 5 days. Can you give me these last 5 days of freedom? The branches overhead cast dappled shadows, and sunlight streamed through, creating shimmering patterns on his face. But his gaze held nothing but frosty indifference. I looked at the man in front of me, the man I had loved for 18 years in my previous life. Now, in his prime, he was handsome and dignified. Yet, who would have guessed how cold and cruel his heart truly was beneath that flawless exterior? I looked away and lowered my eyes, smiling faintly. I'm sorry, Alex. I won't bother you anymore. With that, I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm again. What's your problem now? I've already agreed to marry you. What more do you want? I turned to face him, shaking off his hand. He looked startled but quickly recovered, his expression filled with deeper contempt. Serena, if you keep this up, we might as well cancel the wedding. I took a deep breath, swallowing all the bitterness, resentment, and pain bubbling up inside me. In my past life, he treated me this way. This time, I make sure he felt it all back in kind. Softening my tone, I spoke with a hint of grievance in my eyes. I'm not causing trouble. I just wanted your opinion on some details for the wedding. So I came to ask. But before I could finish, he waved me off. I don't care. I've already told you. Do it however you like. All right. I won't bother you with the rest of the details. I replied quietly. Perhaps because I seemed so obedient and docile. Or maybe because he felt a twinge of guilt. Alex suddenly reached out to ruffle my hair. All right. I'll come home early tonight for dinner, he said. I feigned delight. Okay. I'll wait for you. He chuckled lightly, but the smile faded as quickly as it appeared. Pretending not to notice, I walked away cheerfully. It wasn't until I was far, far away that I finally crouched under the shade of a tree and let the tears flow freely. That evening, Alex came home, but he wasn't alone. He brought Vivian Yao with him. In my past life, he had always hidden his feelings for her, and I was completely unaware of his affection for her. This time, before we were even married, he couldn't contain his growing desire for her. Vivian greeted everyone in Alex's family with a warm smile and handed out beautifully wrapped gifts. With her beauty, elegance, and grace, she looked perfect standing next to the refined and handsome Alex. I, on the other hand, felt like a complete outsider. At some point, she walked up to me, holding a gift. This is for you. Congratulations on your upcoming wedding with Alex. I accepted it graciously. Thank you. She seemed surprised by my reaction and pursed her lips, her smile dimming slightly. Serena, go help prepare dinner, Alex's mother said casually, as she had many times before. I put the gift down and raised my bandaged hand. I accidentally cut my hand this morning. I can't cook tonight. Alex's younger brother, Chris, rolled his eyes. Seriously? A little cut and you're out of commission? So spoiled. Alex's sister, Emily, chimed in. Yeah, you're just trying to slack off. Alex's mother glanced at me and chuckled. Well, She's about to be a bride. Brides are supposed to be delicate. I guess this old woman will have to handle the cooking tonight. Vivian quickly stepped in. Auntie, let me help you. How could I let you do that? You're a guest. It's no trouble at all, Vivian said sweetly. I'll just be your assistant. Soon, she came out carrying a dish. Serena, can you take this? I need to peel some onions for Auntie. She called me so naturally, as if I were her helper. I stood up to take the plate, but before my hand could touch it, the dish tipped over. Hot fish chunks spilled all over her, especially onto her bare legs, turning the skin an angry red in an instant. He exclaimed in shock, crouching down to clutch his reddened leg, tears welling up in his eyes. Serena, you did this on purpose, didn't you? Alex's fury exploded as he shoved me aside. I stumbled a few steps before falling to the ground. My palm landed squarely on the slimy fish pieces, and a sharp bone pierced my skin. My forehead slammed hard against the edge of the table. Alex carefully helped Vivian to her feet before turning to me with a frosty glare. Aren't you going to apologize to Vivian? Fighting through the pain, I swayed unsteadily as I stood. Blood dripped from my injured palm, staining the hem of my dress with vivid red splotches. Alex seemed to hesitate for a moment, but his expression quickly hardened, the coldness in his gaze deepening. Serena, apologize, he commanded. Alex, it's fine, Vivian interjected, gently tugging on his sleeve. I'm sure Serena didn't mean to drop the plate. Serena, didn't you hear me? Alex's voice sharpened. I told you to apologize to Vivian. What if I don't want to? I asked, meeting his icy gaze. Then I'll cancel the wedding immediately. Alex stood tall, looking down at me with a commanding presence. You know my temper, Serena. Once I say something, I won't take it back. Behind him, Vivian stood silently. When I glanced her way, her lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. I knew exactly what she was doing. She wasn't trying to make me apologize. She wanted the wedding canceled. She didn't want to marry someone she didn't love. She wanted Alex. She had walked a long and winding road in my previous life, marrying someone else first before finally ending up with him. But I wouldn't let her have her way. All right, I said, biting my lip as tears brimmed in my eyes. My expression carried a mix of grievance and fear. I'll apologize. As the words left my mouth, Alex let out a barely perceptible sigh of relief, though his face quickly returned to its usual cold demeanor. Don't let this happen again, he warned, taking the first aid kit from Chris, his younger brother, and giving me a disdainful glance. The wedding is in just a few days. Behave yourself. I lowered my head, letting silent tears fall, my face a picture of timid remorse. Alex then turned his attention back to Vivian, carefully tending to her burns. Should we go to the hospital to make sure there won't be any scars? He asked, his tone soft and concerned. Wouldn't that be inconvenient? Serena might feel upset. Vivian replied hesitantly. Upset? Why would she be upset when she's the one who caused the trouble? Alex said coldly, throwing me another sharp glance. She causes problems and leaves me to clean up the mess. What right does she have to be upset? That night, Alex didn't return home. A text from an unfamiliar number appeared on my phone. He's worried about Vivian's injury and wants to stay with her tonight. You should rest early. Don't wait up for him. Bride-to-be. I thought bitterly. The text wasn't wrong. I should go to bed early. There were still plenty of things I needed to handle, like sorting out the old properties and shops my parents left behind, as well as finalizing my inheritance. The houses needed to be entrusted to a reliable agent for sale. Once all the inheritance was settled and liquidated, I'd take every last cent with me. I wouldn't leave a single penny for Alex's family. The day before the wedding, I had to try on the wedding gown for one final fitting. In my previous life, Alex had only briefly tried on his suit before leaving. This time, however, he stayed. Even after I finished trying on the main wedding dress, he remained seated on the sofa outside. When I stepped out in the gown, I caught a flicker of amazement in his eyes, though it quickly faded. The waist seems a bit loose, the stylist commented softly. It would look better if we tightened it slightly. Alex nodded in agreement. She used to have a smaller waist, Tighten it a bit more. But I shook my head. No need. It's more comfortable this way. Not like I'll actually be wearing it for long. I added under my breath. Alex stood and walked toward me, suddenly wrapping his arms around my waist from behind. You've grown up so much, he said with a nostalgic smile. I still remember when you first came to our house as a child, crying day and night. Now, look at you. A beautiful young woman. He lowered his head, his gaze filled with a rare tenderness. And tomorrow, we're getting married. Leaning closer, he seemed about to kiss me, but I raised my hand to stop him. There are people watching, I said, feigning shyness. Alex chuckled, clearly pleased. Fine, then. We'll wait until the wedding night. His breath brushed against my ear as he whispered, I'll save it for then. I lowered my head, hiding the bitter smirk that played at the corners of my lips. The night before the wedding, tradition dictated that the bride and groom shouldn't see each other. With no family of my own, I stayed in a hotel. When Alex dropped me off, his phone rang. Judging by his distracted expression, it was probably Vivian calling. I deliberately looked hurt, my expression tinged with jealousy and sadness. Alex raised an eyebrow. Come on. Tomorrow's the wedding. Don't make a fuss over nothing. Just come pick me up early tomorrow, I said, tilting my face up to him, my eyes full of anticipation. Clearly flattered. Alex softened. I'll be there on time. Don't worry. With that, he left in a hurry. I immediately turned and went upstairs, checking my bank cards and account books one last time. I made a few calls to the real estate agents before finally taking a shower and going to bed. That night, I slept dreamlessly. Meanwhile, Alex seemed restless. He barely managed to nap as dawn approached. But when he did, he inexplicably dreamed of me in my wedding dress from yesterday. My every smile, movement, and gesture in the dream were graceful and captivating. In his inattentiveness, he suddenly realized that I had quietly transformed into a beautiful woman. I had a slender waist, fair skin, and though my figure wasn't as tall and delicate as Vivian's, it had a youthful fullness and softness. There was a tender charm to me that was distinct. For the first time, Alex found himself having absurd thoughts about someone he had always dismissed. When his phone rang, waking him up, he felt inexplicably irritable. He even considered delaying his plans, waiting until after the wedding night to leave. After all, he thought, I had loved him for so many years. Perhaps giving me that one night could count as a small reward for my devotion. But the voice on the other end of the phone quickly shattered his thoughts. What did you say? The bride is missing. Alex shot up from his seat, his grip on the phone tightening as his fingers began to tremble slightly. That's impossible. Did you check the wrong room? No, Mr. Carter. The voice on the line insisted. We didn't make a mistake. The front desk said the room was checked out 2 hours ago. Miss Serena's phone is also unreachable. The makeup artist is on the verge of tears. The words rang in Alex's ears like clanging metal, loud and jarring. It took him a moment to find his voice. I'll call her. Please wait a moment. But my phone was already disconnected. Alex frantically scrolled through his contact list, but he didn't know who to call. He had no way of reaching any of my friends or relatives. Despite all our years together, he knew nothing about me. He had always believed that I was entirely under his control, so much so that he couldn't fathom the idea of me leaving. Throwing on his clothes, Alex grabbed his keys and drove to the hotel himself. His nerves were frayed, and he ran 2 red lights on the way. Just as he neared the hotel, he tried calling me again, but my phone remained unreachable. His heart sank. Then, his phone buzzed. It was the makeup artist. Mr. Carter, we found the bride. It was a misunderstanding, the voice said, relief evident. Alex felt a massive weight lift off his chest, like a dense fog clearing away. He pulled over abruptly, gripping the steering wheel tightly. His voice trembled slightly as he asked, Say that again? We found her, the artist repeated. She said she felt uncomfortable last night and decided to switch rooms temporarily. The artist continued speaking, but Alex barely heard a word, leaning back against the seat. He suddenly laughed softly. He realized how ridiculous he had been. Of course, I wouldn't run. I loved him too deeply, too obsessively, to do something like that. The absurdity of his earlier panic struck him. What a joke. Before the wedding, Alex's family had consulted a fortune teller who had calculated our compatibility based on our birth dates. Due to certain taboos, Alex couldn't personally pick me up from the hotel. By the time the wedding procession returned to the venue, Alex was already dressed in an impeccably tailored black suit, holding a bouquet of flowers and waiting at the entrance. When the groomsmen got out of the cars, their expressions were mixed, but none of them said a word. The bridesmaids, however, were conspicuously absent. I sat quietly in the car, my face veiled with white lace. Through the delicate fabric, only a faint outline of my features could be seen, a blurred hint of beauty. Alex hadn't expected to feel much excitement. Marrying me had always carried a trace of reluctance for him. Yet, when he saw the figure of the bride in the car, an inexplicable ripple stirred in his heart. The image of me in the wedding dress flashed in his mind, the way I had looked at him with gentle, loving eyes. Without realizing it, a faint warmth began to grow in him, softening his usual coldness. For Alex, alongside his career success, having a woman who had loved him unconditionally for years gave him a sense of pride and satisfaction. He stepped forward with the bouquet, walking slowly toward the car. The groomsmen exchanged glances, seeming hesitant to speak, but ultimately said nothing. When the car door opened, Alex extended his hand. "Serena," he said softly, his voice carrying an unusual hint of warmth. As my name left his lips, a subtle smile flickered in his eyes. The hand that emerged from under the lace veil was delicate and slender, its fingers encased in white gloves. When my hand lightly rested in his, Alex's grip tightened instinctively. But in that moment, a strange feeling stirred within him. This hand didn't feel like mine. My hand was softer, smaller. The hand fit perfectly in his palm. Just as Alex marveled at this, the bride stepped out of the car, her face hidden beneath the white veil, and glanced at him shyly. But in the instant their eyes met, Alex abruptly released her hand as if burned. The color drained from his face entirely, leaving a deathly pallor. A deafening silence settled around them. Vivian was the first to react. Her initial surprise quickly gave way to disbelief, and then to visible humiliation as her eyes reddened with unshed tears. The bouquet slipped from Alex's hands, tumbling to the ground. He turned sharply, grabbing someone nearby and rasping, "What is going on? Where is Serena? Didn't you go to the hotel to pick her up? How could you mistake someone else for her? What were you all thinking?" His voice grew louder, trembling with rage as he lost control of his emotions. "We don't know, Mr. Carter," one of the groomsmen stammered. "When we arrived, the only person in the room was Miss Vivian." "Yes," another chimed in. "We didn't see Serena at all." Alex spun around, his gaze locking on the makeup artist with an icy intensity. "Didn't you say the bride had been found? Is this your idea of found?" The makeup artist was on the verge of tears. "Mr. Carter, this isn't my fault. I was just following instructions. Miss Yao said she would take full responsibility for everything. I didn't dare question it. I'm just here to do my job." "Alex, it was my decision." Vivian stepped forward from the car, her back straight and her expression calm despite the tears threatening to spill from her reddened eyes. "Serena was nowhere to be found, and the wedding was about to start. I didn't want you to be embarrassed in front of everyone, so I came up with this plan. If you're angry, blame me, yell at me. It has nothing to do with anyone else." Her voice wavered slightly as she lowered her head, allowing a single tear to slide down her cheek. Then she looked up again and forced a small, trembling smile. "I did this because I care about you. Alex, maybe we can just go along with it? You've always had feelings for me, haven't you?" The murmurs of the crowd grew louder as Vivian's words seemed to find support among them. "She's right," someone said. "Vivian and Alex are a much better match than Serena ever was. Serena throwing a tantrum and disappearing before the wedding? She doesn't deserve him." "Exactly," another added. "Does Alex really need to beg her to come back? What kind of drama will she cause after they're married?" Vivian's tears fell freely now as she gazed at Alex, her eyes full of hope. Alex stood frozen for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he turned toward the crowd. Vivian looked stunning in the white wedding dress, And Alex couldn't deny that they shared a deep understanding and compatibility, spending so much time together. He had grown fond of her. But his heart knew that the woman he was supposed to marry was Serena. In his mind, he had already considered her his wife. Even though he sometimes felt she didn't deserve him, he had intended to uphold the marriage contract, believing it was an obligation he could not shirk. He had decided to proceed with the wedding, even while keeping his upcoming departure a secret from Serena. He had planned to delay his plans for a few days, to give her a proper wedding and wedding night. Fate allowed. Perhaps they would even have a child, solidifying her place in the Carter family. Yet Serena had disappeared before the ceremony, throwing everything into chaos. Alex couldn't understand where she had found the audacity to challenge him like this. Was it because he had defended Vivian when she was burned, chastising Serena in the process? Did she think her parents' favor toward his family gave her the right to manipulate him? Anger bubbled up inside Alex like never before. For a fleeting moment, he considered going along with what the others were suggesting, marrying Vivian instead. But then his gaze fell on her again. Vivian was wearing the main wedding gown Serena had chosen, but it didn't fit her quite right. She was taller than Serena, and much thinner, leaving the bodice loose and the waist lacking Serena's soft curves. The memory of Serena in the dress yesterday resurfaced. Her figure had been delicate yet full, a vision of understated beauty. Serena's usual casual clothes had always hidden her charm, but seeing her like that had taken Alex's breath away. "Alex!" Vivian called softly, breaking his reverie. Her voice was timid, almost pleading. Alex's expression darkened. Without a word, he reached up and tore the boutonniere from his chest, letting it fall to the ground. "I'm not feeling well," he said flatly. "The wedding is postponed." Without sparing a glance at anyone, not even Vivian, he turned and walked away. Vivian stood frozen in place, her face flushing crimson as the weight of everyone's stares bore down on her. Some looked at her with pity, others with disdain, but most seemed eager to see her humiliated. Her entire body trembled, her fingertips icy as her composure began to crumble. Never in her life had Vivian experienced such shame. Despite her modest upbringing, she had worked hard to earn her place at a prestigious university in the city. In the architecture department, she had always been the center of attention, adored by her peers. Even Alex, who had been aloof, had hovered around her like a devoted admirer. Yet today, in front of everyone, he had shattered her pride, leaving her utterly humiliated. Why? How could he do this to her? Vivian ripped the veil from her head, tears streaming down her face. She violently flung the veil onto the ground. It wasn't until I was seated on the departing plane that I finally exhaled a long breath of relief. As the aircraft ascended into the clouds, I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. The nightmare of my past life had come to an end, if only temporarily. At this moment, I didn't know what the road ahead would hold, but I was certain of one thing. After cutting ties with this ungrateful family, my future could only grow brighter. When I was 5, my parents died in an earthquake. In their last moments, they used all their strength to push Alex to safety, saving his life. Out of gratitude, his family took me in and arranged for me to marry Alex when we grew up, ensuring I would have stability in my life. As I got older, however, that gratitude became something else entirely. As Alex's future grew brighter, I was reduced to nothing more than a pitiful hanger-on who had lucked out by being associated with the Carter family. When Alex went abroad for humanitarian work, he disappeared without a trace. During those years, I sold the house my parents had left me to pay for his mother's medical bills. For 5 long years, I cared for her while she battled her illness. Later, when Alex's younger siblings married, had children, and built their lives, I willingly handed over my inheritance to help them. When Emily, Alex's sister, got married, I provided her with $36,000 as part of her dowry. When she gave birth, I gave her another $6,000 as a gift. When her husband abused her, I stood by her, helping her seek justice, file for divorce, and even bringing her and her child back to their family home. But when Alex finally returned and wanted me gone, it was Emily who said, with a cold smile, "We've been taking care of you for over a decade. We've more than repaid the debt your parents left us. In fact, my brother sacrificed his chance at happiness for you. If you had any conscience, you'd step aside for my sister-in-law." When Alex brought Vivian back, it was their mother who happily accepted her into the family. She welcomed Alex's decision to oust me with open arms, fully supporting their relationship. For 10 years, Alex had secretly sent money to the Carter family while living abroad. During that time, he and Vivian had already been living together, raising children. Everyone in the Carter family knew about it except me. I had been left in the dark, used until there was nothing left to take, and then discarded like trash. In the end, I died alone and in misery, untreated and unloved. Thinking of all this now, I could only laugh bitterly. If my parents knew what had become of their sacrifice, would they regret saving Alex's life? I would never know the answer to that question. But in this new life, I no longer believed that kindness would always be rewarded. Meanwhile, Alex frantically called me over and over, but none of his calls went through. I had blocked and deleted every number from his family as well. First, his parents didn't take it seriously. "Alex, don't go looking for her," his mother said firmly. "What new bride makes such a fuss and plays such games? She's just testing you, trying to make you give in. We won't let her have her way." In their eyes, I was just an orphan girl, helpless and head over heels in love with Alex. Their pride and joy. They couldn't imagine that I would ever truly run away. They dismissed my actions as nothing more than a childish tantrum. But Alex remained by the window, unmoving. A sense of foreboding gripped him. He knew deep down that I wasn't throwing a tantrum or trying to manipulate him. I was truly angry. I truly didn't want to marry him anymore. He thought about the kiss I had avoided when trying on the wedding dress, the way I had quietly urged him to leave the hotel the night before. I no longer acted like the anxious girl who cried and clung to him at every little disruption. In the past, every woman around Alex had been a source of paranoia for me. My constant jealousy had been both flattering and suffocating to him. It was one of the reasons he had applied to work abroad, to escape me. He believed he had paid back his family's debt to mine. He felt no guilt in leaving me behind to pursue a life he truly wanted. What he hadn't expected was that I would be the one to leave first. "Wait," Emily suddenly said, breaking the silence. "What about my gold jewelry? You promised me that once she became part of the family, she'd buy me a whole set of gold. Now she's gone, and so is my jewelry." Alex's chest tightened. He remembered the inheritance my parents had left me: properties, shops, and a large amount of cash. Outwardly, it seemed the Carters had supported me all these years, but in truth, they had spent far more of my family's money than their own. Alex had been vaguely aware of this, but now it struck him more acutely than ever. I might have disappeared, but as long as the assets under my name remained untouched, it meant I hadn't truly left for good. He convinced himself it was only a temporary scare, that I was just trying to teach him a lesson. "Why are you so anxious?" Alex's mother said nonchalantly. "Wait until she lowers her head and comes back begging for forgiveness. When she does, you can ask for whatever you want." Emily pouted. "Who knows when she'll come back? What if she doesn't?" "Impossible," their mother scoffed. "You know how much she adores your brother. If it weren't for her devotion to him, I wouldn't have agreed to this marriage in the first place." Alex suddenly turned around and spoke coldly. "Mom, go find someone right now to check if Serena's properties are still in her name." His mother froze. "What do you mean by that, Alex?" "If the properties are still there," Alex said with a self-deprecating chuckle, "then it means she's just throwing a tantrum. If they're gone—" He didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was clear. Realization dawned on his mother, and she couldn't stay seated. She rushed out, muttering, "I'll go find out right away. Her houses, her shops, those things can't be sold off so quickly." Emily, now in a panic, grabbed Alex's arm. "Brother, what are you saying? Do you think Serena actually ran away from the wedding?" Alex didn't respond, his expression cold. Emily stomped her foot. "I already told all my cousins about her. She really ran off. What about my jewelry? You promised me she'd buy me a whole set of gold when she joined the family. Now that she's gone, what happens to that? And how am I supposed to face everyone?" Alex sneered, his gaze sharp. Why are you so upset? Didn't you always say you didn't want her as your sister-in-law? Who doesn't want money? Emily muttered. Alex's cold smile widened. Exactly. Who doesn't want money? The Carter family looked down on Serena, but they clung to the engagement as if it were a lifeline. He realized now that he was no different. Serena had money but no family to protect her. She had loved him wholeheartedly, and by marrying her, her wealth naturally became part of the Carter family's assets. That had been his unspoken assurance when he applied to work abroad. He could leave without worrying about anything. Emily's petty and selfish behavior disgusted him, but deep down, he saw the same qualities in himself. Brother, what if she's really gone? Emily asked, her voice trembling. Alex's expression remained cold as he headed for the door. I don't know. What are we supposed to do? Emily wailed. Mom already paid the deposit for the new villa. Alex's laugh was icy. Whoever made the decision can pay for it. Without another word, he slammed the door, shutting out Emily's angry cries. I had left for a southern city I had always loved. Back when I was applying to colleges, I had followed Alex to Beijing, even though my dream school was elsewhere. Now, with the freedom and resources to make my own choices, I decided to fulfill the dream I had abandoned. I bought a cozy 2-bedroom apartment near the university I had once longed to attend. After settling in and taking 2 weeks to rest, I began preparing for graduate school. If I couldn't study there as an undergraduate, I'd do it as a graduate student. In my previous life, Alex had returned triumphantly from his work abroad, celebrated as a hero. He had married Vivian and moved into a new home, basking in the peak of his success. As for me, the city had been in full bloom, but I had arrived at the wrong time. This time, I would experience the spring for myself. 2 months after I had settled into my new life, Alex unexpectedly appeared. Spring was in full bloom. I had just left the university library when I spotted him standing outside. He looked thinner, but his presence still stood out among the crowd. Once, his mere gaze could make my heart race. Now, I felt nothing. Hugging my books close, I walked past him. Serena, he called softly. I stopped and turned to him, my expression indifferent, as though looking at a stranger. I've been looking for you, he said. Why? You're my fiancé. We're engaged. We're only engaged. Alex, we never registered the marriage. It's not legally binding. Alex's white shirt was pristine as always, and his glasses framed the face I had once loved so deeply. But now, none of it mattered. I've thought about it a lot since you left, he began. I realize I was wrong in how I handled things with Vivian. I admired her academic achievements, but there was never anything romantic between us. I've already spoken to her, and she left the country 2 weeks ago. She won't be coming back. I promise nothing like that will ever happen again. Come back with me. Serena, the wedding arrangements are still in place. We can hold the ceremony anytime you're ready. What makes you think I would go back with you? Is it because I used to love you? I smiled as I looked at him. Alex, haven't you realized it yet? From the moment I left, you became nothing to me. I know the past hurt you, Alex said, his tone softening. I've reflected on everything. Nothing ever happened between Vivian and me. I swear. Does that matter? I asked. Alex, I don't care about you and Vivian, because I stopped loving you a long time ago. That's impossible, he insisted. We grew up together. You've loved me for so many years. And yet, your love didn't stop you from secretly applying to leave for your overseas project. Planning to leave right after the wedding, did it? Alex's face went pale, his expression changing drastically. How do you know that? I know you were planning to leave with Vivian. If I hadn't stopped it, you two would have started a new life abroad. While I stayed behind, oblivious, I would have been left to fulfill your duties, care for your family, drain my inheritance, and be cast aside when there was nothing left of me. Isn't that right? He looked at me as if he'd seen a ghost, his face white with panic. But I didn't let him off the hook. I stepped closer, meeting his gaze head-on. If I'm right, your mother is gravely ill, isn't she? Alex instinctively took a step back. How do you know that? I chuckled coldly. I know your mother well enough to guess the timing. She must have just been diagnosed. and you're keeping it a secret out of pride. So tell me, Alex, did you come here to make amends? Or are you just looking for someone to care for your mother and use my inheritance to fill your family's bottomless pit? That's not fair, he said, his voice rising. How can you think that about us? My family raised you, supported you for over a decade. Doesn't that mean anything to you? Everything they took from me has already repaid their kindness. I said flatly, don't come looking for me again. Alex, I have no ties to your family anymore. And neither do I have anything left to say to you. I stepped past him, heading toward the campus gates. But he wasn't done. Serena, please, he called after me, his tone pleading. Think about it. Think about everything we've been through. Can you really just let it all go? I let it go a long time ago. I replied. You should, too. Instead of wasting time chasing after me, you should focus on earning more money. Your family has a lot of bills to pay. Serena, must you be this heartless? I laughed. Heartless? Alex, when your entire family schemed against me, where was your conscience? Where was your kindness? But we never actually hurt you, he argued. This is all just in your head. So what? I said, smirking. Even if it's just a possibility, I've killed it in the cradle. That's all. Alex took a deep breath. But Serena, we know each other. Can you guarantee the next person you marry won't take advantage of you? Who says I need to get married at all? I countered, amused. Alex lingered in the city for a week, hoping to convince me, but I eventually called the police, and he had no choice but to leave. Once he realized I was resolute, he stopped pestering me. Not long after, I passed my graduate school entrance exams. One day, a classmate from my hometown contacted me privately, telling me the Carter family's reputation had plummeted, and they were struggling to get by. More and more stories began to surface, how they had taken advantage of an orphan girl, showing no gratitude for her sacrifices. Alex's mother had become bedridden, her health deteriorating rapidly. Chris had turned to delinquency, landing himself in jail for several months. Emily, having failed to get into college, moved in with her boyfriend to avoid taking care of their mother. With mounting medical bills and penalties from breaking the villa contract, Alex had been drained of every penny he had saved. His old friends and classmates had distanced themselves, leaving him utterly alone. When I heard this, I couldn't help but smile. Without me to serve as their scapegoat, their days were truly difficult now. But what did their struggles have to do with me? I had a house, a car, and a comfortable bank account. I was free to enjoy my student life without a care in the world. Whether I met someone new or lived alone forever, I knew my life would be far better than anything I had endured with the Carters. The filthy swamp of their family could no longer disgust me. Years later, I heard that Alex had left his family behind to reunite with Vivian. The two of them settled in another city, where she gave birth to a son. They seemed to be doing well for a while. But it wasn't long before Alex returned to his hometown, alone and dejected. By then, the Carters had sold everything they owned, reduced to a shabby rental property. His parents, deprived of proper care, had passed away. Chris had fled to another country, getting involved in fraudulent schemes. And Alex, he was just a shadow of the man he used to be, burdened with the weight of a ruined family. His life was in shambles. Emily had married early and given birth to 3 children, but her husband was abusive, leaving her trapped in a cycle of violence. Alex lived alone in a dilapidated rental unit, spending his days drowning in alcohol. It turned out that Vivian's son wasn't his. She had only been with Alex to find a convenient father figure for her child. Once the boy grew up, and Alex had worked tirelessly to provide for them, Vivian reconnected with the child's biological father and left Alex behind without a second thought. I encountered Alex once when I returned to my hometown to visit my parents' graves. He was sitting on the roadside, disheveled and reeking of alcohol. Despite being in his early 30s, his hair was already streaked with white, and he looked much older than his years. Passers-by avoided him with expressions of disgust. No one would have guessed that he was once the successful, admired Alex Carter. I didn't feel any pity for him. My sympathy for him had long since died. But I couldn't help feeling a faint sense of irony. When we were children, Alex had been kind to me, He was my hero back then. But we grew up, and everything changed. As I walked past him, I felt his gaze on me. He seemed to recognize me, springing to his feet with a sudden burst of energy. But then, as if ashamed, he turned his back and covered his face with his hands. I didn't stop. I didn't acknowledge him. I simply walked past, my steps steady and unbroken, leaving him behind just as he had once left me. Another spring came, and the flowers were in full bloom once more. I wouldn't look back. I wouldn't forgive. I would simply keep walking, moving forward into the endless spring that belonged to me. Serena,